Dizzy was the first character released in Guilty Gear Strive Season 4. And when she was first showcased, the first thing on our minds were, what the heck is that? But now it's been 5 months and holy crap, it's been 5 months. What the frick? Time is moving fast. And now it's time for us to take a look at the character and see where she has formed her spot in the meta. And spoiler alert, she can use a bit of help. And so I'm back from Monster Hunter Rise Addiction. I know it's been a while, I know it's been a minute. And what better way to return than with another episode of the long-awaited Why Nobody Plays Dizzy Edition. But first things first, just because I'm making this video as to why nobody plays Dizzy, that does not mean the following two things. One, just because you see a bunch of Dizzies in floor 5, 10, 6, 7, 8, quintillion, whatever the frick, doesn't mean I want to hear about it, okay? You are the exception, not the rule. And two, if you play Dizzy, keep playing Dizzy. Enjoy her. If anything, I am spreading propaganda in order to get your character buff. So that's a win-win in my books, okay? Let's go. Now, first things first, let's go over the pros. Pro number one, Dizzy has some pretty good zoning. You know, I will say like things like Ice Spike and Michael's Sword and Firefish, right? Even these fishes, they all have like some very, very unique strengths to them that makes her zoning pretty gosh darn strong. This move got a huge buff, which makes it so that your opponent gets hard knockdown, which just allows her to kind of set up a lot easier if you can kind of confirm and getting hit. Ice itself has a great reward, which has just enough like hit stun for you to run up and actually get a knockdown. And Michael's Sword is a massive button. That is a massive chunk of damage. And if your opponent either gets hit with this move while they're standing, or if they get massively counter hit, like so, boom. Let's see if we got these. Well, okay, hold on. You get a massive reward off hitting that move. Another thing too is that Dizzy has some pretty good mix, right? She can do things like that to kind of cross at the opponent, right? And even get some things like restand off of, or like, you know, remix off of this and ice. Boom, boom. Hold on a sec. That's a cross up. You guys get the idea. Because of this, she has the ability to kind of snowball your opponent, and so it never really feels like any round is completely lost as long as you get the right hits. She also has pretty decent health, sitting at around the middle of the cast, like upper middle of the cast. She is not weak by any means, especially the fact that she has a 5 guts rating, which means that later on in the matches, when she's like below that 30% threshold, it's gonna take a while to really kill her. Another thing which kind of complements her pros is that this ice floor is really nice because Dizzy benefits off of it much more than your opponent does. For example, if you lay down the ice floor and Dizzy dashes, she gets her full startup dash animation, whereas if my opponent does so, they actually, whoa, hold on now, am I stupid? Holy frick, I did not know that. So apparently every character except Dizzy, so in the Dizzy mirrors, ice does not affect you at all. It's apparently a pro. That might go on the cons. I don't know. But against other members of the cast, you actually have a longer startup from the ice floor, which makes approaching her actually way more annoying. As you can see, it takes so mad long to even start up his run. This then forces your opponent to make riskier plays in neutral, like Gyara dashing, which is super like obvious to kind of move around, and then therefore you're able to kind of like punish them for approaching because, you know, you lay down an ice mat on the floor. So pretty nice. Now, I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but that's kind of where the pros end, okay? Now we're gonna be getting into the cons. But before we get into that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so. I'm working really hard on these videos. I'm also trying to feed my editor, Lanely, who is literally eating bread out of a ramen noodle packet. So, you know, any little bit helps. You can also catch me live on Twitch, where I'll be doing a whole lot more challenge videos and essentially torturing myself for your entertainment. I will be live this Thursday at March 20th at 8 p.m. EST. Okay, that's it. Back to the video. To go over con number one, we have actually enlisted the help of the best character in the game. Potentially a video on coming soon. Johnny. Con number one, her anti-air. Holy bejeeber beans, Batman. This anti-air is, it's quite bad. It's quite horrible. If you would please step into my lab and take a look at this. I do not know how this move actually made it out of Arxis Labs. Especially when you have moves like this that exist. It is quite curious to be sure. I mean, like, dude, what the frick? It just does not go over her, or it does not go over her head like at all. Where Testaments, this is like, this is another extent. This is like a whole other torso going up here, and it goes, the horizontal reach is way better. Even for characters like Gold Lewis, who has a pretty crappy like horizontal reach, at least it's really high above his head. Like freaking Dizzy, what the frick is she doing here? Look at her. What she it's not going nowhere. The reason why I've enlisted the help of Johnny is because this situation comes up a lot, where you have characters that cannot 6P Johnny's his misfire at certain ranges, or they clash at certain ranges because they do not have that horizontal reach. And then when it comes to horizontal reach, Dizzy probably has the worst horizontal reach anti-air in the entire game. Horizontal and vertical is the stubbiest anti-air in the whole game. I do not understand, like, what the frick? That moves very importantly into reason number 2, is that her mid-range is absolute dog. You see, Dizzy's effective range is either here or here. If she is here, right, like basically like either just outside of far slash range or even in far slash range against certain characters, Dizzy kind of sucks. Now, ultimately, there's a few reasons why I say her mid-range is bad, and we're kind of going to go over each one right now, actually. Ultimately, it boils down to her mid-range buttons are kind of dog water. And when I mean dog water, I mean more so like they're just a little too slow, like slightly slow enough that the characters that share the same effective range as her, they're just faster. Characters like Elfelt, which is known to have one of the slower far slashes, hers is 11 frame startup. Johnny's is gosh darn 9 frame startup, and it goes just as far. But honestly, Johnny's a bit of a problem. That's a story for another day. Dizzy's far slash being 12 frames and multi-hitting makes it just very awkward to use. The reason why I specify the awkward use is that it is like just hitting the last hits of it is a little weird. Like there's no real like hit stop from it, so you kind of just like buffering, so you're not really getting the optimal amount of like hits, aka damage anyway, right? I think it only ever hits a total of 5 times, and it's just like in practice, it just, unless you get a counter hit or something, it's just kind of annoying to confirm. Not only that, but she just completely loses round start to Johnny, to Elfelt, to characters like Nago, to characters like the list can go on. To be honest with you, it's probably easier to come up with a list of characters that she does beat round start, which to be honest with you is not a whole lot. When we take a look at her 2S, it's better, but the problem is that it also lacks the horizontal range that you would expect that she would have as like a zoner character. It's a zoner character with stubby buttons. Like, I don't know, it's kind of freaking weird. 5K is honestly one of her only saving graces. Like, this move is a little good, but it kind of goes back to my point, which is that Dizzy's effective range is not necessarily here, but it's like kind of here, where she's actually able to hit you with 5K. Her sweep is pretty notable. Like, I mean, it goes very, very far, but same problem. This thing is 12 frame startup. It's the same startup as her far slash. And you might be thinking like, well, hey, Josh, like, are you just kind of nitpicking these things? Like, does it really matter? What does that extra frame really matter? Well, it compounds. Like, it just compounds. You can't have slow buttons and a bad anti-air, okay? Like, the thing is that like her far slash is comparable to Testament's far slash. Testament's far slash is also a 12 frame startup, right? But you don't think Testament has a bad mid-range. Why? Because Testament has a very far-reaching 5K and 2K and one of the best 6P in the game. So when Testament has you at that awkward mid-range, it's actually more annoying for you as the defender or offender, like, to actually approach Testament, because they can just hit you with those all freaking day long. Dizzy, she not hitting nobody with this any day of the week, okay? Next, let's talk about Michael's sword. Now, this move is very, very strong, but the problem is that this move has another weird sweet spot where you can't be full screen when you use it. You kind of have to be mid screen when you use it, but you also don't want to be too close when you use it, because characters like Johnny can just far slash the fudge out of you, because this move is like, what is it? It's 26 frame startup. 26 frame startup. And it's -10, which is not that big of a deal because the pushback is pretty nice. But you can also 6P it. It's a mid. You can 6P the fudge out of it. When she's at this weird mid-range, she can use things like ice, but ice is really gosh darn risky because 1, it does not have that much pushback, and 2, it's -12. Like, look at this and tell me that if this is okay. It's like, oh, well, you know, there's a little bit of a weird range. I'm just gonna fud in, oh, well, ho howdy. And then Johnny can do card super and then put you through the wall. Then you're gonna friggin' eat a mix and then die. That's pretty cool. It feels like Dizzy has these like weird dead zones in neutral, right? Where yes, you do have an option to press a button, but you don't really want to, or you feel kind of uncomfortable about it, or you either have to overcommit to an option, right? Most of these options are not even super high reward in order to kind of like assert yourself. And if you guess wrong, you're going to eat a chunk of damage or a knockdown or both, and then you're going to have to eat the mix. Which goes into my next point. Her reversal is not good, okay? It is in fact quite bad. Reason being, it is 11 frame startup, okay? Now it goes very far, I will give it that. This move goes mad far. But 11 frame startup is kind of buns. Now, because of the slow startup, you can do the PRC thing where, you know, you cancel the startup into the startup's invincibility frames into blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, like, these have never really been that good, right? Think of it close to like Testament's super, where Testament, it's also gosh darn slow, and like all you can really get is a throw. Technically, if you're at certain ranges, it's just not great, especially against faster characters or against safe jabs. Case in point, I was able to whip that up in like 2 seconds. It's really not that hard. Next point is that zoning is just not that good in general, right? Like, here's a good example, right? I'm going to do ice into heavy Michael sword, which is admittedly a very common like sequence that allows you to kind of stuff out opponents trying to approach you, right? If you do that against certain characters, however, you get absolutely and totally blown the frick up. We have characters like Johnny with his Mistfinder that goes like 3/4 of the screen, Nago Beyblading all over you and throwing shadow clones at you. You have Gold Lewis with his freaking anti-air machine or anti-zoning machine gun. Okay, zoning in this game is just not that rewarded anymore. The exception to the rule is and always will be Happy Chaos. But other than him, like, what is that? And they also nerfed the zoning aspect of him, so they try to make him more of a close range character to begin with. Arxis clearly does not want zoners to be strong in this game, and I understand. If zoners were strong, then it would not be a beginner friendly game anymore. If we take a look at literally any single tier list that's out right now, you'll notice something. Zoner, kind of a zoner, right? All the zoners are trash right now. Even somebody else's tier list. Zoner. Yeah, zoners are just, they're not that good, okay? They're not that good. Next is that her mix-ups, even though they can be, and I put a big emphasis on can be very strong, a lot of them are usually one-dimensional. What do I mean? Let's take this common situation where Dizzy does 2K2D into knockdown and she throws fish. Now, I was holding down back there, and as you can see, okay, I get hit, right? Because that is a cross-up with a very good reward, I might add. But what happens if you're far away? Now, I'm going to hold back, right? I'm holding back. There is no way for her to cross me up now all of a sudden. Same thing if she tries to do the same thing, right? Or like she tries to do one of those. I'm still holding down back and there's no way for her to cross me up at certain ranges, at basically like halfway to max distance. This is important because if you know this stuff, you're actually able to counter it. Some more egregious examples is that after her throw, if you do throw into fish, this is actually not a true block strength. I can just completely jump. Well, yeah, it's going to try to chase me or whatever the frick, but I could just either jump or press a button to just smack the fish away from me. Okay, well, hold on. Yeah, something like that. And so that forces the Dizzy player after the throw to go for something like this, where she has to throw fish and then kind of like press 2K in order to force them to sit still. But if they backdash, then, you know, they might get caught by a fish sometimes, but, you know, maybe not really. And this is something that I'm sure a lot of you people actually do not know. After ice knockdown, you actually get knocked down way faster. So if she throws fish, you can just throw her. If they are just kind of autopiloting that, and you as a Dizzy player or you as somebody who lapped against Dizzy knows that, you can just take advantage of all these gaps, and I can go on and on. Another thing which I wholeheartedly disagree with is that they completely nerfed her Firefish, right? This move right here, making the first hit an actual physical hit, right? In order to push it back, it just completely ruins her game plan. Ruin is maybe a strong word, but if your opponent is just faultless defensing it, right, then look at how much pushback that is. What the frick, right? I will say this move used to be really strong. It's still kind of strong, but it used to be really strong because you used to be able to do things, right? I'm just gonna have her insta block to kind of like show off the original way, right? You used to be able to do things like this, right, and really force your opponent in very uncomfortable situations, very uncomfortable strike throw situations, which, yeah, like if she has that strong strike throw, that's really, really good. And she's able to kind of loop it in a way where your opponent was forced to take an advanced action against it. And I thought that was pretty cool. But now it is just so easy to entirely counter this move. Like, you just like push block her a little bit and then you're able to get a complete punish off of it. I get that Arxis didn't want any scrub killers in the game, but I feel like it was a decent enough scrub killer that it forced people to kind of learn the interaction. And mind you, the interaction was not that hard to begin with. All you had to do was stand up the first hit and then 6p. Stand up at 6p. It's not that hard. Now they just completely took it away, which I'm completely fine with. It just makes her pressure when she's actually in your face just that much worse. Because what is Dizzy realistically able to do, right, when she puts you in this situation, right? This move, yeah, sure, and then she pushes you all the way back here. You could just take so much space. You can literally travel from here to here before she's even able to take an action after that. And so while, yes, Dizzy is a snowball character, it feels like if Dizzy does not get the right Lego pieces in place to start the snowball, and she has to kind of start from a default state, it makes it really hard for her to get anything going. She ends up just becoming a very mediocre strike throw character. A good example of this mediocrity, I will say, is her Blue Wild Assault. Now, upon labbing this move, right, you would think you'd be able to do something like this into Fish, but actually no. This into Fish is actually counter hit punishable, right? Okay, I don't know why the frick it's counter hit punishable. This into this move does not put you at any threatening range whatsoever, and so all that leaves you is with Wings of Light, which admittedly is a pretty gosh darn strong situation to put your opponent in, right? But and massive but, Wings of Light is a gimmick. Wings of Light is one of those, if I'm winning, I'm going to win more style moves. To begin with, it's really hard to justify using Wings of Light over any of your options. If you, for example, get 2K2D, why the frick would you go for Wings of Light aside from Fish? Why would you do that? Somebody explain to me. The answer is, if you do this, you're kind of dumb. I will admit, right? Because then what? You're just trying to hit me with your mediocre strike throw? And then if I tech a throw, if I YRC, shoot, if you hit me and break the wall, this is what really upsets me about this move. If you hit me and break the wall, right? Let's just say you're really doing it, right? Shoot, Wings of Light is about to pop, right? If you break the wall, Wings of Light resets. It completely resets, entirely resets. Why? Why do they do that? I can tell you why. Because if Wings of Light actually didn't reset, it would be phenomenally broken. I get it, because, you know, you can kind of like pop Wings of Light, hit them, put them in a knockout situation, use a positive bonus to sort of wait out the timer pops, Wings of Light pops, and then all of a sudden, your opponent dies. I get it. Problem is, if you invent a move where if you tweak one or two things and it is absurdly broken or entirely useless, that's not really good move design. And so it ends up feeling far more like a gimmick than an actual solid win condition. If they remove the limitation of Wings of Light disappearing off of throw tech, like so, then you can actually justify a playstyle where she could pop Wings of Light and sort of play a bit more turtley, and with good defense, you can actually punish your opponent for trying to approach you in the first place. Because if you can tech throws, if you can react to throws, which honestly is not even that hard to react to, then you can like kind of turtle out the activation of Wings of Light and then take your turn and then run at them, and then kind of like force your range or something like that. And since it also takes all of your meter, it is way harder to use in the context of an actual match, because you either won't have a whole lot of meter to even do a whole lot to begin with, right? Because you kind of need your meter. Usually weaker characters need their meter in order to actually be full characters or to feel like full characters. So she's meter hungry to begin with. On top of that, Wings of Light's duration is completely tied to meter. So if you only have like half a bar or a quarter of a bar because you were actually spending your bar to actually do things, Wings of Light's kind of going to be useless. But also, say you have a whole bunch of meter, use Wings of Light, and your opponent runs away from you. Your opponent's playing Chip, or he's playing Milia, or they're playing whoever the frick, right? They're running away from you. Wings of Light activation is very quick. Oh, that's hilarious. I got negative penalty, and then Wings of Light popped entirely because of negative penalty, so you can't even play its early playstyle to begin with. That's actually quite hilarious. You have 5 seconds. You got 5 whole seconds, so you better start running. Okay, you better start running at them. Now, there are certain sequences into Wings of Light, but those sequences themselves are a gimmick, because if your opponent honestly like techs the near obvious throw, or like just kind of like holds up back, they're not really going to get hit by it to begin with. So why would you play her if you want to play a zoner, right? You would play Axel, you would play Testament, you would play Asuka, you would play Happy Chaos probably, right? She's the worst zoner. And that's saying something because zoners are bad to begin with. And why would you play her if you want to play a mid-range mix-up character? You have Elfo, you have Johnny, you have Gold Lewis, okay? You have Ramathal. All these characters just do Izzy's job, but better. When you have a character that exists, and then you have characters that do their job, but 10 times better, it makes that character very hard to justify. Yes, you could say, I'm a waifu warrior, okay? But that's all you're doing, right? Let's admit, that's all. That's the only reason why you're playing this character. You're not playing this character because they're actually good, because she's not. So in conclusion, this is in a pretty bad spot, but honestly, she's not even that bad, okay? I know I just kind of ragged on her for a bit, but I just kind of get in the zone. Okay, I just kind of get in the zone. GGST has done a great job at making every character feel like they are playable and feel like they are good. It's not really against certain characters. And who knows, maybe with the release of Venom, we can get a slew of Dizzy buffs, and then this character will be top 5. Never know. But till then, this has been another episode of Why Nobody Plays Dizzy Edition. Till next time, peace.